In terms of speaking about culture, like culture is something that I think back then when I was like smaller, I didn't quite appreciate.
Yes.
Where people, culture, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I just want to grow revenue, I want to get customers. But once you get bigger, then you know, culture, it's big.
That's exactly it. So in 1997, when I was at Stanford, I did a class on entrepreneurship. And every week someone talked about go-to-market strategy or financing or
Tactics,
how to raise money.
Yeah.
And at the end, this old guy comes and he goes, let me tell you about culture, right? And we're like, we don't want to hear about this.
Yeah, who
we
cares?
want to raise the money. we
Yeah,
want
it
to
feels
sell.
so like, yeah.
But then after I left and I worked in a bunch of little startups that other people had started, whatever, and I saw what bad culture is like, oh my God. It's like night and day, right? And it's a very interesting challenge to get the culture right because you have to be, the fish rots from the head. So as the leader, you've got to make sure the people underneath you have the right culture, and then below that and below that. So always hire A's, right? If you hire B's, they hire C's. And once you hire C's, you've got cockroaches. And when you get cockroaches, you can never get rid of cockroaches, right? So you want to always hire A's, make sure the people that you are hiring have got the right culture. And it's the other challenge, which took a long time to learn as well, was if you think about 2x2 matrix, right? Very talented people versus very good cultural fit, right? So ideally you want to hire very talented people with a really good cultural fit, and they're your stars, right?
Yes.
Then you've got people who are great cultural fit, but not so talented. And you want to keep them, but you want to invest in them because they've got a positive attitude, they really want to do better, they want to learn,
new skills.
etc. So you invest in those people and try and get them to be high-performing people, right? People who are low cultural fit and low talent, you just never hire them in the first place.
Yes, you don't want them.
But the trickiest are the very talented people with a bad cultural fit.
100% agree.
And I constantly make mistakes where I have a brilliant person, that like a genius, right? And you're like, oh, I can't, like, I have to be careful what I say around them, or they've got a bad attitude. People who kind of work with them tend to want to quit, etc. And you kind of go, well, what do? I don't want to fire them because they're so good. They're so good, right?
It could be like a star salesperson, right?
That's right.
Who brings a lot of revenue.
And some people look up to them or what have you, right? And so you're like, oh gee, if I can't get rid of them, then there's a problem. But the classic management textbook says get rid of them, right? And every time I've never done it, I've let them kind of linger. It just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So that's a trick as well. Is you always got to make sure. Culture eats strategy for lunch.
100%.
You got to make sure you have great people.
Yeah, as we grow, and because culture is where what governs people when the leaders are not there, right? It's exactly because as I found out now, more and more layers of people. I will have my communication with the first layer, but then the second layer, there's not one-on-one.
That's right.
I have never talked to them.
Yes.
Right, because they're hired by the first layer.
Yep.
And I can imagine the third and fourth layer, it's the same thing. So if the culture is not clear, the communication, like you said, it gets diluted.
And it's crazy how this works, where you can have you can just have one office.
Yes.
And as the office gets bigger in that one office, if you can't see the people on the other side of the office, you're stuck in like an us and them mentality.
Yes.
And the manager over there, they do things a certain way, and the managers over here do things a certain way. I remember one of my offices in Sydney. We got so big that we rented the office across the road, and it was literally 10 meters away. And this whole us and them started, the culture wars started. Those guys don't work hard, they go home early. These guys are working hard.
They are pulling me back.
So you have a lot of challenges, right? Particularly if you have offices around the world, and particularly if you don't take one of your own people and seed the office with them as the initial manager. It's very hard to hire somebody in there fresh with the right cultural fit, etc. So, it's challenging. There's tricks you can do, like. You can do surveys, for example, where you ask, what's sacred? What are the sacred things that we hold dearest in the company? And you kind of get everyone to kind of contribute to that.
That's a very good question.
Never collective way. And then what's taboo? What are the things we should never do? Right? And get people collectively to do that. And you share the results, and you can kind of build this cultural, organizational alignment where everyone goes, okay, that's who we are.
What is your hiring process in terms of filtering out the bad apple, or the cockroaches, or the low culture? Like, what do you do?
Well, hire slowly, fire quickly, right?
What's your typical hire period of time? Like, does it take 1 month, 2 month probation? Like,
well, I mean, a minimum of 3 interviews. You want to do with breadth, so you want to have someone who's in a different team interview, depth, so someone in the same team interview. The hiring manager has to be involved. Then, if it's a senior role, I like to be, myself or one of my direct subordinates, gets to go in there and veto. In fact, anyone in the hiring process should be able to veto a candidate, right, for whatever reason. If you've got something in a remote location, the local office manager should be able to veto the hiring of that person, even if they're in someone else's team.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's pretty tough, but you can fix a lot of problems by getting the right people. So and replacing people who kind of been in your organization.
How many all 5 companies combined? How many employees do you now have?
There's about 570 at the moment.
Wow.
GMY.
Wow. And do you structure your business where you have, let's say you're the main core executive team, they manage all 5, or the core executive team, but then you have leaders and drivers within each company? Like, what's your structure?
So each company has an exexitive team.
So like there's a CEO in that company.
Well, sometimes not CEO, it might be a general manager, or it might be just a head of, etc.
Okay, got it.
I don't want to call them a CEO because I want them to have a career progression
Okay.
to get to CEO, and they might be too junior because the company's a bit small, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then there's some people that kind of sit across the top and kind of try and have a view of kind of everything that's going on. At least
And then those are the ones you talk to frequently about the strategy, what's going on.
Yeah, I talk to, the other thing I do is I have a number of product managers who are kind of like mini CEOs in the business.
Okay.
And a product manager might be, for example, in charge of just memberships on Freelancer, or they might be in charge of contests on Freelancer, or they might be in charge of the hiring experience.
That one particular revenue source.
Yeah, maybe a revenue source or a functional group, or payments, or trust and safety, or customer support, customer experience, and then I try and really work closely with the product managers across all the different companies.
Right, and then do you look at that all the time, metrics? Again, it's something I'm just all speaking from experience because I want to ask you, right?
Yeah.
About now I'm looking a lot more in data. Every single week we're looking at numbers, metrics, and KPI, and using KPI to hold the team member accountable, right?
Yeah, so there's 2 different angles there. One is around performance, and the other is around analytics. So we really excel, I think, in data science. We've got a very, very sophisticated data science outfit. We've got, we statistically test everything we kind of push to life to the website. We have a dashboard that has about 40,000 graphs in it, updated in real time. So anything that, in terms of the instrumentation,
log in.
Anything, like I can tell you, for example, right now, how many $5 English exams people in Pakistan have done while we've been talking.
Wow.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Anyone can do this in their business, really. I mean, you just basically query the database, look for various metrics, and you can use GNU plot or whatever to kind of hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly kind of plot these metrics in a very basic way to start off with. And then on top of that, the way we kind of drive performance, well, for starting every team, we kind of have like this agile philosophy where you kind of every week you do groom your backlog. Here are all the things that I could do this week.
Right.
Let's plan them out for the week, which is sprint planning. Then at the end of the week, you do a retrospective: what worked, what didn't work, etc. Daily stand-ups is really important. Every morning, the team's
like a huddle, right?
9 o'clock huddle. What we're going to do today. Okay, great. Go around the team. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Etc. And then we run OKRs. So this is basically a methodology that came out of Intel around how you get people to basically take responsibility and be motivated to deliver results.
Right.
And we do that not quarterly, we do that 6 times a year. We call it 6 cycles.
6 cycles.
So every 2 months we plan out, here are the objectives and key results. You're not intended to hit 100%. You hit 70%, that's good enough. If you hit 100%, then it's too easy. You need some stretch or aspirational goals. And if you don't hit them, well, something's going wrong.
Or do they need help? Do they need coaching? Or they need capital? Whatever they need, right? Whatever resources they need.
And I have a very good AVP of operations who kind of helps everyone and coaches everyone. He's like the company coach. And
that's good.
He helps everyone quite.
So with you, what's your day-to-day like? Because now you have the big team, you have all the employees. I know you travel a lot. Like, what's the highest and best use of your time as the CEO, as a leader of?
Well, a lot of it is really getting the right people in the right roles, and making sure we hire the right people and running the right parts of the business. Again, I work.
So finding talents, recruiting talents.
Yeah, working heavily with product. So giving feedback and coaching, because I have the corporate knowledge right back to the beginning of the company.
Right.
So other people might have only been in the business for a number of years. I've been there for the whole way through, so I know what we've tried before and what's worked, what hasn't.
And you
worked.
kind of have the pulse of what will work,
exactly.
what not work, right? Yeah.
I try and set the tempo and drive people. I do a lot of external communications. For example, I did the talk on the growth mindset.
Yes.
I spoke to press today. Speak to you now.
Yes. So almost like being a spokesperson too for the company.
Yeah,
in some
as
way.
well. I like other people to speak as well.
Yes.
I lose my voice if I speak too much. too many places.
Right.
I do investor relations. I mean, do everything. I also see myself as like it's kind of all the crap rises to the top. Like when you have a weak team leader who can't deal with an issue with their team, it escalates to their manager. And if they can't deal with it, they pass it to their manager, and eventually gets to me. So all the crap goes to me, right? So I deal with all of that.
Crack magnet.
Yeah, exactly. It floats to the top.
By the time it goes to you, probably it's not a good thing.
I know, it's probably pretty bad, but
it's pretty bad by the time it gets to
oh,
you.
Shit, I have to deal with this. So I do that, and then the stuff